Please welcome Jim Clements, President of Clemson University.
Don't waste your energy getting up. Instead, use that energy to help NSF. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon. Can you hear me in the back? Good? All right. Thank you all for being here today. And to my good friend Ponch, thank you for your incredible leadership of the National Science Foundation and the positive impact you are having across the country. Would you please help me thank him? Ponch, I love your passion, your energy, and your ideas. I can tell you, I've known Ponch for a long time. All of us are very fortunate to have him in his role. He is doing a great job. I'm honored to be here with you today for the celebration of a truly great individual and a transformational leader, President Emeritus Peter McPherson. During his 16 years, Peter, you're going to get a lot of love today, okay? During his 16 years leading APLU, Peter helped to transform the landscape of higher education, and he created opportunities for unprecedented research and collaboration across the entire country to help tackle some of the biggest challenges of our time. I've had the privilege of knowing Peter during my 13 or 14 years as a university president, and I was fortunate to spend a lot of time with him during my time as chair of the APLU board. I learned a lot from Peter as a leader and as a mentor, but most importantly, I was able to really get to know Peter personally, and I have the great honor of calling him a dear friend. It's difficult to capture someone's legacy, their entire life's work, in just a few minutes. But I think we can all agree that Peter is an incredible person who cares deeply about others. Peter is a forward-thinking strategic leader who has dedicated his life to serving others. I was first introduced to Peter by another one of my mentors, Dr. Britt Kerwin, who was the chancellor of the University System of Maryland. When I joined the APLU board, Peter and I had an instant connection. And as a new president at that time, I looked to him frequently for advice and guidance. Peter never failed to provide that to me, and he was always available anytime that I called. Peter always saw the bigger picture of higher ed and all the facets of the important work that we do. He would call me on a regular basis, almost every Sunday afternoon. Thank you for doing that, Peter. I really, really appreciate that. But we would brainstorm ideas, and he would discuss with me a wide range of topics that he was thinking about. One initiative that I'm really proud of, and I know he is, that he brought to me and others and discussed, is the work being done by Powered by Publics to promote greater access, greater opportunity, greater student success, and impact for all. Peter, it's an honor for me to be here today to celebrate you with all of these wonderful people. And I hope that as we continue this celebration of honoring your legacy in higher education, that you know how much of an impact you've had on those of us in this room and on future generations, and how much you inspired each and every one of us. To continue our celebration, I would like to invite former SUNY Chancellor Emeritus and former chair of the APLU Board of Directors, Dr. Nancy Zimford, to the podium.
We've got all this incredible energy up here. Thank you, Ponch. And we're ready to celebrate Peter McPherson. And I just, it's very, very special to be here. It's very, very thrilling to have a few remarks. I wasn't Peter's first board chair. I was early in his tenure, but I was on the search committee, Peter, which reminds me to say we had a number of fabulous candidates. I really didn't know what to expect. I'd never been on a search committee for an association, but I can tell you Peter came prepared. He had an idea about strategic thinking. He had an idea about action. He had an idea about living in Washington and the context of advocacy. And in the end, it was a very easy choice, and the board agreed, and that launched his 16-year career with us. So that said, I've been looking at all the initiatives that Peter guided. By the way, if you go to the website, it's pages of documented ideas that Peter shared with us and brought to light. And as I read through them, I realized, you know what we have here? We have the Peter McPherson theory of leadership and action. And this is how it goes. You start with a problem. Peter loves problems. And he also likes solutions. So he takes a problem and he turns it into a challenge. Then he gets on the telephone. Jim, you are so right. It's never Monday through Friday. It's Saturday. Peter, it's Sunday. Now, you have a very short call, and when he says, now you take care, you're done, right? That's how the call goes. So he's getting all this input, this road testing, and then he convenes us. He puts us on a commission. He puts us on a council. He puts us on a task force. But what he does next is critically important. He supports us. He finances us. And in the end, he embraces the action and the advocacy we have proposed. That, my friends, is the Peter McPherson theory of leadership and action. Now, that said, I have 3 memories of my own. First was a conversation we had over and over again about turning a membership organization into a leadership organization. It's not about old business, new business, some business, no business. It's about what you're going to do when you come together like we have so regularly. And I appreciate that, Peter, and I think you have taken that membership idea and turned it into leadership. And secondly, I want to thank you for incorporating the urban serving universities into the life and work of APLU. There are many people here who have benefited from that step. And of course, we were invited to hire someone, which Peter was going to bankroll, and we just couldn't get it done. We couldn't make a decision. 2 weeks later, he took the right candidate to lunch. He hired her. We went off into the sunset, and we've had a great run, and we will continue to. So thank you for that. And then my third remembrance, because there are so many, is when he and Dan Fogel decided we have to celebrate the 150th anniversary of the Morrill Land Grant Act. So in recruiting a number of chapter authors, et cetera, it turns out that Peter wrote the foreword. Now, what you don't understand, Peter, is people don't read the foreword. They go right to their chapter to see what they look like in print. But here's what he said in the foreword, because I think it lays the groundwork, Mark, for what comes next. All those who care about the vitality and well-being of the United States must be concerned with the current challenges facing the nation's public higher education sector and how to maintain its long-term strength. This was a decade ago. Peter's writing this. While I understand those who fear that our public universities are coming dangerously close to falling off an edge beyond which institutional viability will be in grave doubt, I believe we are at a crossroads. It seems to me we can't wait another 100 years. We can't even wait a decade. We have to renew, maybe revise, re-energize the Morrill Land Grant Act. And Peter has laid out the gauntlet, and Mark Decker has picked it up. Thank you, Peter.
Well, thank you, Nancy, for those kind words, and thank you for serving on that search committee. You obviously made a great decision. Nancy said a couple things that if you work closely with Peter, always prepared, absolutely is a true statement, and leadership and action, absolutely true. Now, would you please help me welcome former Kentucky State University President and former chair of the APLU Board of Directors, Dr. Mary Evan Sias, to the podium.
Peter, I'm delighted to be here and to be with all of you. Jim, I got the 10:45 a.m. call, so I wasn't right up on that list, I guess, on Sunday mornings. So all of us got them, and maybe some were a little bit longer than others, but that was a signature task of yours, Peter. I always said, doesn't Peter go to church? I'm going to not talk about APLU and what Peter did, but I really want to humanize him a little bit and talk about his style of leadership, the insights I learned, and the lessons learned. The first thing that I can remember is an old African proverb that says, "Until I see you, Peter, you don't exist." And you might wonder, what does that mean? Often we're at tables with people, we're working with them. We don't take the time to understand their background and who they are and what motivates them. That's not how Peter operates. We had a lot of morning discussions because I'm a morning person, and Peter gets to the office at 7 o'clock. In his office, appropriately with him at the desk, and we agreed to disagree. I learned that you could do that without being mad for more than, I would say, a couple of minutes, but sometimes, Peter, it was 2 or 3 days with you. But more importantly, I found my voice when talking with Peter. You learned to come prepared with the data. You learned that you could go back and forth and persuade him in some instances. You also realized that Peter could talk to anyone and do anything, and it would make a difference. And I'm sure there are a lot of you, hundreds of you in this audience, that Peter has guided in that way. You know, we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, but it was really Peter who built an organization based on that. All you have to do is look at everybody in the organization, from administrative assistants to people in marketing, the meetings people, the young professionals you hired, the senior ones. You knew long before most of us thought about it that if you got diverse people there from different backgrounds, you made better decisions. Peter was almost capable of bringing us in and locking us up in a room and telling everyone you're not leaving until you can reach some decision here. But he brought the right group of people, and we did work hard, and we did get it done, and Peter was able to implement, always with transparency, with all the stakeholders, and you knew he had measurements ready to tell whether we were successful or not. One of the most important things I learned from Peter is about listening. Listen, his listening, and how he listened to others at tables when he would walk around. Listening is important, but Peter also served as a filter for what he heard. And he measured what was good based on the mission, vision, and strategic plan of the organization. And he got it right. Peter was there whenever anybody needed help doing that. And I used to wonder, how is Peter able to do all of this? And it finally occurred to me as I was reading a book several months ago that had a quote in it by the late Bishop Desmond Tutu. And it said something to the effect, we often go out toward the end of the river and pull bodies out. But you really have to stop and go up to the mouth, upstream, to find out why were those bodies in there in the first place? And what I'm saying to you is, Peter, I got it. You always ask the why. Why is it this way? And the why is the context. And you really can't make substantive change unless you understand the context, the why. And Peter got to be really good at that. APLU will evolve and continue to do great things. Generations of college students, new administrators, and public higher education as a whole will benefit, Peter, because of the work and your vision and what you've done. I want you to know that I know sometimes you were a reluctant warrior. You thought about it. The idea wasn't yours. You mulled it over, rolling that cigar in your mouth. You came back around, and finally you remember that day when you had to say, well, this might be a good idea. So it wasn't always how people thought Peter was going to set about doing it. He did the right thing, not only what was intellectually right, but what was right in your heart. So I will say to you, Peter, with love and plenty of respect, a simple thank you from me and from all of us. Job well done, Peter. You got it right.
Well, thank you, Mary. What an incredible tribute to Peter. A couple things that I just wanted to echo on. If you don't know Peter that well, those of us who do, clearly his heart for diversity, equity, and inclusion. You can see it in the team that he built. And I heard it in the discussions many times that Peter and I had. And Mary, also, you mentioned his why. That was always driving Peter, and his incredible transparency. Thank you again, Mary, for those comments. Would you please help me welcome to the podium Chancellor of the University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign and former chair of the APLU Board of Directors, Dr. Robert Jones.
Well, let me start by saying good afternoon. Come on, Peter's retiring after 16 years. We certainly can do better than that. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. That's much better. Well, let me say it is truly an honor and a pleasure for me to be here and to offer some very brief remarks, because once again, I find myself in that precarious position where everything has been said, but not everyone has said it. So I'll be very brief. Peter, I just want to first of all on the front end and not wait until the end of my remarks to thank you for 16 years of amazing, transformative leadership of, I think, the nation's finest association that I have been a part of ever since I got my first quasi-administrative position. And so I've come to know this organization back in the old days when it was the organization also known as the National Association of Public and Land-Grant Universities. So I've been around a while, and I think if history serves me well, my former boss, Bob Brunix, I think along with you, Nancy, must have been on that search committee, and maybe was maybe your first board chair. We can fact check that in case I'm wrong. But it was through that relationship with Bob where I really got to know Peter, and I got to see Bob and Peter work together effectively along with Nancy and Mary and all the other subsequent board chairs to see how they work collectively to move this organization on to increase its scope and its membership. And Peter, I was down in Mexico City for the first time in 43 years about a month ago. And the folks said, you really remember the role that you played in expanding the membership of this organization to at least a couple of universities in Mexico. They still remember it well. Those are just some examples of the influence that Peter has had. He's grown the membership. He's created new strategies, not only powered by public, but I remember vividly when he asked me to get involved with helping to shape this new idea that led to USU, and I think I was on the search committee with you to select that first leader. So those are just a few examples of the transformation that Peter has brought to the table. And then finally, I was invited to join the board and got myself in the queue where Cola is now as being the secretary and over the Council of Presidents, and worked my way up through the ranks. And after all of these years of aspiring to be chairman of the board for APLU, pandemic hits. So I didn't have the opportunity to stand up in front of all of you and pontificate, as the board chair has the privilege of doing. I had to work with Peter to transform the whole operation virtually. So Peter, on behalf of myself and Wadad and Becky, we think that we deserve at least one more year on the board, so we will have an opportunity to benefit from all of the accoutrements and all the benefits of being board chair. So we can talk about it later, Dr. Becker. But anyway, I say all that to say that Peter has been an amazing mentor and a leader for us all. Your leadership and your ability to listen, and also not listen, but to drive new innovative ideas, it goes without saying, you have truly left this organization much better than you found it. And we are eternally grateful for you, and we wish you all the best. It was also my mixed emotions to start to have the conversation with Peter as he contemplated when he was going to be transitioning. And I can tell you it was a difficult conversation for me, and after serving so long, I suspected it wasn't an easy thing for him. But Peter, I can tell you, you are one of the most amazing people that I've had the great honor of working with. You have great integrity, just a great visionary. And like many others have said, I don't know what to do with myself on Sundays anymore. I sit around waiting on the phone and it never rings. So Mark, you're going to have to fill the gap, man. You got to call me on Sunday if it's only to say hello. So Peter, congratulations on behalf of all of us across the 16-year history of this organization. It's been my great honor and pleasure to call you as a friend and a mentor. Thank you so much.
Robert, excellent comments. Thank you for that. And I forgot that when you were chair, it wasn't in the middle of the pandemic, and we didn't get to see you in person. But Robert, you did a great job on Zoom. I love seeing you on my screen. So I hope you still felt that connection. I know. So President Becker, I would support another year addition for Robert on the board. You got my vote on that. And I appreciate, Robert, you mentioned the expansion of APLU to include international universities. I was part of that discussion with you, and I think under Peter's leadership, that was a great move. And you also stressed what is a common theme of the others. Peter is a great listener. If you ever had discussions with Peter, he listens very, very closely. I'd now like to call to the podium Senior Vice President for STEM Education and Research Policy and Advisor to the President here at APLU, Howard Gobstein.
So, what am I doing here? I am not a distinguished leader. I'm not a science evangelist. I would imagine that there may be one or two of you here in the room that know Peter longer than I have. But there is no one in this room or on this planet who has worked with Peter longer. So I'm here representing all of the individuals, dozens, hundreds of us perhaps, that had to take the phone calls at 10 o'clock at night, every night. Let me start by suggesting what it was like for me at the very beginning. I had known Peter, or at least had heard of Peter, at an AAU president's meeting. Now, some of what I'm going to say might even be true. So it was at an AAU president's meeting, and he was an abrupt former senior officer federal agencies, business organizations, pretty intense, pretty focused. About a year later, I found myself walking down a long hallway. It was a paneled hallway. There were a lot of pictures of heads of state, pictures of presidents, pictures of secretaries, cabinet agencies, and so on. And Peter was in every single one of those pictures. I was getting a little intimidated walking down this long hallway. I was headed for a job interview. Now, I was headed for a job interview with an individual who had been a conservative Republican and worked for 3 Republican presidents. At the time, I was working in the Clinton White House in the Office of Science and Technology Policy, so I was even more intimidated. As I walked further down the hallway, there was a letter to him from Mother Teresa. There was a large Peanuts cartoon signed not only by Charlie Schultz, but it was to Peter McPherson, cajoling him about something. I get to the end of the hallway. I'm shoved into the room. The door clicks behind me, and there in front of me, sitting on a big leather couch, is a gentleman in a white shirt, tie down and askew. There is a hole in his shoe. I look across the room, sort of glancing around, and there's a trench coat on his desk. But it's wadded up in a ball, and it's in his inbox. My intimidation vanished. This was a regular guy. So let me tell you just a few more snippets here, if I might, about this complex character of Peter McPherson. So we all know of him as a doer, as an international leader, led commissions, led agencies, was the board chair of Dow Jones, led departments. But 2 of his efforts, which were really special to him, one was a partnership for cutting hunger and poverty in Africa, helping people around the world, particularly in Africa, who had less, who needed to provide more for themselves. This was something so important to Peter. The second was the Simon Study Abroad Commission, in which he was trying to ensure that most undergraduates, or every undergraduate, had an opportunity as an undergraduate to learn about the context of the world and to get this part of their undergraduate education. That was very important to Peter, how to help students to learn about the world. We all know of Peter, who focuses on the bottom line like a hawk. He's a lifetime banker. But the tuition guarantee that he started and probably shorted the MSU budget, Michigan State budget, more than a decade before Purdue, my alma mater, had a similar tuition effort. That was Peter. That was Peter recognizing both political necessities as well as helping undergraduate students. We know of Peter as a visionary. We also know that he was a doer, and he completes things. As he says, getting things done. If it weren't for Peter, the Detroit College of Law might still be a small private law school in the middle of Detroit, rather than the Michigan State University Law School. We didn't know that Peter had an inner nuclear physicist in him. He was the one who had the chutzpah at Michigan State University to take on a federal laboratory to develop a competition for a $750 million federal, what became the FRIB, Facility for Rare Isotope Beam, facility at Michigan State University, making Michigan State the #1 nuclear physics department in the country. That's above MIT. They used to be #2 below MIT. That was an intense 8 years of my time working on that. But in the midst of everything that we were doing, we might be in the middle of a 3-hour intense effort, Peter would sort of roll his hands together and get up in delight and say, "Isn't this fun?" That was him. Sometimes you kind of wondered if he liked the process and the game more than he liked the outcome. Now, Peter was always one who loved a good argument, and we've heard about that. But I wonder if this conservative Republican, who's the son of a conservative Republican, who's the grandson of a conservative Republican, why did he hire moderate Democrats to be his lobbyists in every organization? Maybe it was because he liked those arguments. Let me finish this portrait amidst all the photos, amidst all the plaques, amidst everything on his wall at APLU president, there was one photo that really stood out. There was a young woman of color in green and white graduation paraphernalia, and she was in a sea of green and white. There were tears coming down her cheeks, presumably because of the incredible accomplishment that she just had. To Peter, that was his favorite picture on his wall. That was what it was all about. That was the kind of success and accomplishments of young people that he really aspired to and helped to motivate his organizations to be doing. So to quote Peter McPherson in closing, for all the hundreds of people that I'm representing up here, thanks, my friend.
Howard, thank you for those kind words and the reflection of Peter as a regular but very complex guy, a doer, a leader, and his incredible heart for making a difference. So Peter, I hope it's becoming clear just how much you mean to so many people in this room and across the country, and just how much better our lives are because you are in it. There are several other people who wanted to share their thoughts with you today, Peter. So the team here at APLU created a video that we'd like to share with everyone. Peter, I hope you enjoy it.
One of the things I appreciate most about Peter's leadership is that he understands the intricacies of higher education at a depth few can match. No matter the issue at hand, he wants to hear from everyone. His collaborative approach is all about inclusivity. He's been so effective and so admired because he cares so deeply and brings that care into very collaborative discussions and decision-making. His deep commitment to higher education and how it needs to continue to evolve has been very impactful to APLU member institutions. One example is his commitment to public higher education that is both equitable and serves the public good. That's a legacy that makes all of us better.
So one thing I think that people don't know about Peter is his compassion. I've been in two very awkward situations with Peter when the individual was just livid and rude and disrespectful. And in that moment, Peter looked past their behavior and had compassion because he knew that they were hurting. Like they were yelling at him, but it wasn't him. Something else was going on, and he was able to see past their behavior and know that they were hurting. And he had such compassion for them that, I mean, by the time the conversation was over, everyone was calm and cool and collected. And I was like, wow, I didn't know he had that gift. But then I remembered he was in Iraq. He knows how to turn the situation around.
Peter McPherson is somebody who is driven and drawn by the truth. He is driven and drawn by a moral compass that aims him in the right direction in service to those who most need a level playing field in society. And through all of his work, Peter has been an important advocate for diversity, inclusion, and equity, and never more so than in drawing together APLU institutions to create a set of programs and profiles to build out student success models for low-income first-generation students of color.
He's not in public service to watch the parade go by. Peter has big ideas, and he believes in getting things done. And he certainly has gotten a lot done while leading APLU. He was instrumental in the creation of the Student Achievement Measure, which has revolutionized our ability to help students succeed. He's also championed the College Transparency Act, which will empower families to make smarter choices about where they pursue higher education. He was the visionary behind Powered by Publix, the largest ever collaborative effort to help more students graduate and advance equity. And now he set a sight on the transparency of financial aid offers, and I can't wait to see what he accomplishes there.
The difference that he's made with his leadership and his vision, he's somebody who always is looking ahead, trying to figure out what are those new challenges that we need to address.
He has always remained young, You know, he and I are both somewhat of the same age, but I think that the trick of leadership is that you stay attuned to the times. And I think that Peter always stayed attuned to the times.
Peter is an extraordinary leader, particularly in two critical aspects of leadership. First, he is a strategic thinker, and he's a visionary. It's hard to find both in the same individual. Second, he's been a mentor to me and to so many other presidents. He takes a genuine interest in our careers and our well-being. Those two qualities make him a great leader.
Peter and I don't always see eye to eye on every single issue, but from the start he earned my respect and admiration. He's a tough negotiator, but a willing collaborator. He believes that people can find common ground.
Peter always maintained his perspective. He always kept things on an even keel, even when they were quite contentious and difficult. He was an extraordinarily fine public servant and a very gifted politician as well.
My fondest memories about Peter is how he's willing to help, how he is passionate about his work, how he stays connected with his member presidents, and his willingness to listen even when we have those fierce arguments. And Peter and I did have them, but we walked away being friends and colleagues.
One of the things about Peter McPherson is that he is dogged in seeing things through to make sure that they're right and to make sure that they're done. I'll never forget getting a phone call at about 4:30 in the morning from Peter in the hotel saying, Tom, I've been talking with the provost. We've got to make some changes in these agreements, and it's got to be done before 8 o'clock. And it's like, okay, so, you know, did you sleep at all last night, Peter? That's kind of my first thought. And of course, now that I know him even better, the chances are the answer was no.
Well, Peter is a quiet leader, but he's tenacious. How many times do I receive calls from Peter on a Saturday afternoon, on a late evening? Always Peter starts out saying, well, you know, how are you doing? And then he launches right into, can you call this person? What are you thinking about this? How can we approach this? Certainly, no one was more attuned to the needs of higher education in his leadership role with APLU than was Peter.
Peter McPherson was an extraordinarily gifted public servant and a good politician. I tapped him to be Deputy Secretary of the Treasury. I was Secretary of the Treasury, and I recruited Peter to be my deputy. And he helped me tremendously in negotiating the U.S.-Canada Free Trade Agreement, which was the forerunner of the North American Free Trade Agreement. If we hadn't had the Canada Free Trade Agreement, we would never have had NAFTA. And the Canadian Free Trade Agreement was a very close-run thing. We only got it at the very last second, and after some very hard bargaining and negotiating with Canada. Peter was an integral part of that.
I have to say that if you talk to the career people in aid, they say Peter was the greatest administrator since the founding of the agency when President Kennedy started it in 1961. And I think you could get that confirmed by many, many career people who remembered him very fondly.
Well, Peter, you're finally doing what we all should do, hanging it up and start enjoying life. I'm really happy for you. You've had some incredible experiences. And I think back to all those days when you sat at your desk, put your feet up, and I sat in front of you scared to death, looking for a $5,000 raise. And boy, at the end, you took care of me, and I think I did a little bit for Michigan State and you. But it was great seeing you the other day. I sure hope that retirement goes well. Hope you get back here, and thank you for all you did for Michigan State. And maybe it's important for Loopy and I and my family. Thank you what you did for me. God bless.
I think our relationship really blossomed when I became president of Michigan State University, where Peter was regarded as one of the most successful presidents in MSU history. Peter and Joanne were the last presidential family to occupy Coles House, the president's residence, and I was proud to carry on that tradition when I came to MSU.
I've known Peter for a long, long time. First and I were acquainted when he was in the Ford administration, actually, helping with personnel, prominent lawyer in Washington, a banker, and perhaps most enjoyably when he was at Michigan State University. I played a little bit of a role. He became the president when I was governor and led the university with great distinction, and which clearly then opened the door for him to come to Washington and work with all of the land-grant universities.
I became more acquainted with Peter and his leadership when he joined APLU, nostalgic I should say, and he was so intent on changing the name because going up on Capitol Hill or going around, we later found out that nobody could pronounce the name nostalgia, and the different interpretations caused him to become so engrossed in changing that name, and he accomplished it.
The partnership between the APLU and AAU is very strong, and I really appreciated the things we were able to do together during my 2+ years in this role and in his last couple of years. But I especially enjoyed being able to co-chair with him the Boyer Commission. He had lots of great ideas, and it really was a joy to work with him on that project that is so important to me and to him.
I got to know Peter about a decade or so ago when I was working for President Obama's Domestic Policy Council, and I'll never forget sitting in my tiny office in the White House and thinking, who is this guy with this unlit cigar with lots of ideas on higher education policy? Little did I know that he'd become such an important partner to me and even a friend and someone who would help guide my career.
I want to thank you and congratulate you on an incredible career in higher education. And thank you for your impact that you've had through APLU and for our 1890 institutions. I want to thank you for being such a voice of wisdom for me, coming to see me and taking me out to lunch when I first got to Virginia State. It meant a lot to me then, and it means a lot to be able to congratulate you now.
So if you've ever worked for Peter, you know that Peter makes it very clear when he is ready for the meeting to be over. When he's ready. You might not be ready, but when he is ready, Peter will stand up and he will clap his hands and he will say, thank you. So, thank you, Peter.
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 Thank you, Peter. Now let's get to work.
Congratulations, Peter, on your retirement, but I know you won't stay inactive.
Good luck in your retirement, and try not to fail retirement as I have done.
Peter, congratulations.
I know Peter doesn't like to waste time, so I'll put it like this. Peter McPherson has made the APLU a force to be reckoned with in Washington. Thanks to his leadership, you can rest assured that if there's going to be a conversation about higher education anywhere in Washington, America's public universities will have a seat at the table. Thank you, Peter.
And I'm one of the few people who has worked closely with Peter McPherson, who knows what his real name is. And I never had the guts to call him Melville. But Mel, wonderfully well done. Congratulations.
Peter, there are so many people whose lives have been positively impacted by your leadership, your guidance, and obviously, as you can see from that video, by your friendship. Thank you for everything that you have given to each and every one of us. No question, you are a pioneer in higher education, and you have paved the way for APLU to be an even more transformational power in education, research, and service. Would you please help me welcome to the podium our dear friend, APLU President Emeritus, Peter McPherson.
Well, isn't this really wonderful? You know, I put together some very careful, extensive remarks talking about things
but they don't really work here. This is really great. I'm not going to go through these, but I want to pick up some of these points because they're really fun. Nancy Zimfer, I remember that search committee so well. We had some great people on that, like Fred Humphreys, that grand old man at Florida A&M that passed away recently. I talked to Fred a couple of months before he passed away, actually. Britt Kerwin was on that committee, number of folks. And I remember sitting with all of you talking about whether we could have a bigger, stronger, more aggressive APLU. And it seemed like the time was right. I remember having that first spring council of presidents meeting where we talked about how to do this. We talked about throughout the membership. I think that what's clear as we work through what we do with APLU is that first and foremost, this is an organization that's owned by its members. And I hope you really feel that. This is your organization, owned by the members. Now that means something very concrete. It means that the organization needs to respond and work on what your needs are. It means too that as owners, if you will, as you all need to work to get the job done for it. And we've been a membership organization. We did a lot of things. I recall when I got here and we talked it through, we were almost uninvolved in science except for the important work in agriculture. Look at the powerhouse we are now. By the way, Ponch needs to have in the 2023 appropriations some money to pick up what was authorized a few months ago. I mean, and you know, APLU is in a position to do that, to really help on that. We've been so much more active on things like in higher education. We really were able to help shape that pandemic money. All the Washington work, and this is something I know you understand, will very much keep in mind. The Washington work only functions if the members work at it. People in Washington don't really care what staff in Washington think. They respond to all of you. Time and again, I remember calling a president or chancellor, many of you are here, and saying, we've got to get to Congressman or Senator X. Would you make a call? And that really did have an impact so very often. Now, when I think back about what we've done together, I really do love this, and I'm going to keep the film here. I got to call people like my old boss, Jim Baker. I like this. The meeting's done. That's, by the way, what my grandchildren sometimes tell me. What I think that this organization has, what this event today is about, in my view. Yes, I really appreciate all that's said. I will treasure it. But I hope we also see this as a celebration of what we've achieved, of what we all have achieved. It's the members, it's the staff. Think about this day. Yes, I appreciate the things that you've said, but think about this as sort of an appreciation day for APLU and staff and all of us. Let me just conclude by saying that the part about APLU that I'm going to miss the most, that I do miss the most, is the opportunity for the regular connections with all of you. So many friendships forged in strong mutual commitment, forged in hard work, forged in fun. yes, I appreciate these friendships, and thank you. It was truly an honor to serve all these years as president of APLU. We have these extraordinary institutions, and thank you again.
Peter, thank you for sharing your thoughts and your reflections with us, and more importantly, thank you for your incredible years of service. We actually have one more speaker to round out our celebration. Would you please help me welcome Chancellor of the University of California, Davis, and current Chair of the APLU Board, Dr. Gary May.
I was so happy to make the cut on the video. I will be brief, but this is important. It's been such a delight celebrating your career, Peter, during this lunch. As I noted in the video, I truly enjoyed your leadership and getting to partner with you over these years, and I'm so glad we were able to have this event in your honor. I'm also delighted to share with you that yesterday afternoon, the APLU Board of Directors formally approved the creation of an annual award in your name. Beginning at next year's APLU annual meeting and each meeting thereafter, APLU will award a Peter McPherson Public University Lifetime Achievement Award. Each year, the award will be bestowed upon an individual whose career has been defined by a deep commitment to the collective advancement of the public research university mission. As someone who has dedicated so much of your life to the public and land-grant university community, including more than 16 years leading this association, we are so honored to create the award in your name. Congratulations, Peter, on your extraordinary career.
Gary, thank you for announcing the new APLU Peter McPherson Award, honoring Peter for his lifetime achievement and commitment to higher education. Peter, obviously so incredibly deserving of that award, and I look forward to seeing who the recipients are going to be in the future and the incredible change that they will have in education, society, and the world. I actually want to call back up my dear friend Ponch from NSF.
Well, I'll keep this brief. I just forgot to do this. Peter, you've been a tremendous, tremendous champion for agencies. I cannot say this enough. I mean, when I got into this job, Peter and I and Barbara meet every quarter. I mean, just amazing job. So here's what I'm going to summarize what people have said, I think. Hopefully it's a good summary. Peter, P. P stands for passion. E stands for I have not found a person as engaged as Peter has been. In my many different associations with Peter I have had. T, we have heard trailblazing guy. He just blazes trails, whether it is international partnerships or other kinds of university activities. He stands for truly excellence, the E. And he's a relentless guy, even if he calls you on Sunday evening or 10 p.m., you know that. So, Peter, thank you so much for all that you have done for the agencies. We owe a debt of gratitude on behalf of the nation. And on behalf of all the agencies, if I can take the privilege, I will say that we owe a tremendous debt of gratitude for what you have done, what APLU does every day. We cannot do our job without the support that you bring to the table. Thank you from a personal and professional level. I've got a gift for you. That's why I came up. So this is from NSF. So I want you to come up and take this. So how do you get Peter's many years of service represented? So I thought at NSF we have got what we call the NSF wall, which sort of exemplifies the kinds of discoveries that NSF has made possible over the last 7 decades. And that's close enough to where Peter is right now. So I thought that might be a good way of celebrating Peter. And Peter, thank you so much. This is yours.
Thank you, Ponch. Thank you, Peter. Peter's coming back up.
I want you to know that I sometimes make calls other than weekends.
I can verify that is true. All right, that concludes our lunch. Thank you all for being here. How about another loud round of applause for Peter for his years of service?